What's up? So in today's video, we are going to be beginning as we normally do this week by calling attention to your center. See yourself, see reality, assess who you are, where you are, and what is the intention right now. The intention is to obviously be single tasking, that is to only be doing one thing for the duration of this video, to take diligent, potentially notes or just, mental notes, and to stay awake, stay alert, and aware, not allowing yourself to drift off. But if you do, don't judge yourself. It's fine. So today we're going to be talking about what to do when something, pretty much anything, bothers you in life. We've already discussed the present moment. We've already discussed the energy consciousness scale. We've discussed energy awareness energy awareness exercises. And in tomorrow's video, we are going to be discussing how to integrate this mindset that you've been learning of inner purpose into your outer purpose, which will be more obviously practical in the sense of what people tend to think of when they think of their outer purpose. But today we're talking about what to do when something bothers you. We'll be going into when life gets complicated. Honestly, I don't even know why I put life in quotes, but just go with it. We'll be talking about letting go, and then we'll be talking about how to overcome feeling lost. So I suppose I put life getting complicated because I wanted it to capture a variety of different aspects of life, which we'll go into. But life for me in the last couple of years got a little bit complicated because I met this girl and I started dating her, and it ended up being a very toxic relationship. This is not the girl, but I just wanted to paint a picture. This girl's name is Gabby, and she's actually really nice. And that's my friend Ricky. And I actually am 19 in this picture. This is my freshman year of college. This is my sophomore year, so I'm 20 in this picture. And this is a heavy drinking day at my college. So this was Marathon Monday. But I kind of thought that it looked like she was my girlfriend, so I'm just going to use her. The point being, there can be situations that you find yourself in, whether it's in a relationship or we'll go into some other circumstances under which you really pretty much lose total control. And that's what has happened to me. And I've seen it happen to a number of other people. And so I just want you to have some foresight into how it may happen to you so that you have more awareness going into it, so that you are ultimately more prepared. And I'll go more in depth into that. But for now, let's go over more of the other life complications. So a world pandemic, that seems to be something that can happen now. A toxic relationship, as I just mentioned. Death of a family member, of a close friend, or even a role model. Problems in your family, drug problems, and there's a number of others, but I'm hoping that these life complications can kind of all be summed up into one. So the world pandemic, the coronavirus, of course, or the C word. This is something that really no one saw coming except, a few educated individuals, probably virologists, and Bill Gates type people. But for the average person, myself included, I had no idea that a world crisis would happen in the year 2020. If you told me that in December 2019, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. If you told me that in a couple months we were all going to be forced to stay in our homes for 3 or 4 months, and then as soon as society reopened, wear masks, I would have been like, yeah, okay, bud. But that's the reality we live in, where crazy things can happen. So I want you to be prepared for that. And the best way I can really help you be prepared from a mindset perspective is to simply give yourself the awareness now that, one, this can happen, and two, if it does happen, you have to look at it as an advantage. Now, on a third point there, I want you to be very stoic if something like this happens. Now, another thing that I guess turned into not a world pandemic, obviously, but a world issue or a world event was the George Floyd murder. The George Floyd murder, and obviously followed after that was many protests and discussion about Black Lives Matter, racism in America and around the world. And, this is something that if you aren't well prepared for, and we're not just talking about issues relating to racism, we're talking about any type of major world tragedy or world event that takes place that becomes mainstream media. If you aren't prepared for it, if you aren't, a poli-sci major in college and have established values and viewpoints on racism in America, or for whatever matter that world event becomes, if you aren't well prepared, then the chances are is that you're going to act very emotionally. And when you act emotionally, you tend to make decisions that you later regret. And this pretty much happens across the board, whether it's in reaction to a world spotlight event, or even, smaller types of decisions, like if you just feel like investing in a stock is a good idea and then you lose all your money, or you feel like you should put all your money on red at the casino. These types of emotional reactions are not really useful. And so what I would encourage you to do, and this is something you might want to add to your master vision, is to look at yourself as a stoic. Because when the world goes crazy and everyone else is reacting like, I don't know if this is offensive or not, but I'm going to say it anyway, like premenstrual females, like young, prepubescent girls, like everyone's acting like that. If you consider yourself an adult, you should really check yourself and be stoic. Pause for a second, reflect on your own moral values, how you think about things, but while at the same time being open to potential subconscious implicit biases that you may have had from the past, being aware of your level of education on certain topics and how much research you've done, understanding there's experts in the field that have been doing this far longer than you have, and then from there deciding, okay, is this something that I need to immediately take action on, that I need to post all over social media about? Or is it something that I should sit quiet on, meditate, and then do an honest self-assessment of where you're at with your education in relation to that topic? And then, after that, really deciding to take some action or not. And, I know this might sound wild to you right now, but I can assure you there's going to be situations in the future that everyone's talking about where you hear about them, and if you aren't stoic, you can end up making a fool out of yourself, seriously. So, one, look at how could this be an advantage. Oftentimes these types of, things are probably more an opportunity to potentially learn or self-evaluate. But, in the case of a world pandemic, rather than looking at it as something bad that happened, look at it as an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity to grow potentially an online business. Look at it as an opportunity to read. Look at it as an opportunity to just reassess the direction of your life. And so, I hope that that gives you some foresight now, while not immediately applicable, although you can add to your master vision something about becoming more and more of a stoic, reading the works of Marcus Aurelius, of Aristotle. Learning about stoicism can be extremely, extremely helpful, and I'm learning that more and more myself. So call your attention to your center now. Who are you? Are you alert? Where are you? And what has been your intention? And let's move on. So back to the toxic relationship thing. Now, this was something I was completely blindsided by. And for many people, this may never be an issue, especially you had a very healthy family life growing up. But, even if your parents are, I would say the average American couple, like relatively happily married, but get into arguments or fights. And I think typically what happens is when you're a kid, they're probably fighting a little bit more because you're sort of, it's sort of them, and you're not really involved in conversations. You're just observing. And when you're under the age of 7, this can have a huge impact on your psyche, on, how you think of relationships. Because if your parents are fighting all the time, especially if they get divorced, kids tend to think it's their fault, okay? And if this happens, this can have an effect on you in the long term. So right now, I'd consider looking at yourself, thinking about the relationship you've had with your parents growing up, or even if maybe your parents weren't around as much growing up, or if you were raised by a single parent, do you have a strong father figure? Do you have a loving, caring, strong mother figure? And do you have an example of a model relationship in which it's supportive, growth-oriented, and loving, or was it potentially not ideal? And this is a very difficult question to face, especially if you grew up thinking your parents had a great relationship, but if you really examine it, it can be kind of hard to admit that maybe your parents' relationship wasn't exactly a model relationship. And when we do this, it can be difficult, but extremely helpful, because for me, my parents' relationship has always been good. They're still together after 24 years. But they did argue a lot growing up. And I think I actually may have gone through a little bit of childhood trauma. Otherwise, I wouldn't have found myself in this toxic relationship to begin with. But to educate you a bit on toxic relationships, and I know this might seem a little bit far-fetched if you've never thought that anything like this could happen to you, but trust me, this is extremely important, because I didn't think it could happen to me, and then it did. So I ended up finding myself in a relationship in which I basically I attracted someone who was extremely controlling and manipulative. And at first, everything was great. It was almost like too good to be true. But over time, it became jealousy, it became controlling, it became manipulative, and borderline insidious in some ways, to the point where you couldn't even really consider any of the things that were going on, a loving, supportive, real relationship. And I found myself asking, how am I even allowing this to happen to me? And I found myself trying to fix it the same way I would try to get in the way of my own parents' relationship growing up and trying to stop them from arguing all the time. I'd find myself trying to fix this human. And the reality is that you lost the battle to begin with. You can't ever fix a person that you're in a relationship with. You just can't. So you may be resonating with this. You may be in a relationship now that you have to examine. You may have never been in a relationship and you think this is a little bit silly to be talking about, but trust me, it's not. You can find yourself in a very toxic relationship. And the one thing I will say about it is that while I'm cautioning you now, and while you still may fall into it, you will learn a lot, because it will uncover parts of you that you need to look at, parts of you that depend on others for validation, parts of you that you depend on others for security, for a sense of security. Now, there can be cases in which you are the controlling, manipulative, jealous person because you're afraid of being abandoned, because maybe a parent or a loved one abandoned you in the past, and you do everything you can to keep people around you. But the funny thing is that when we are controlling of people, that's really the best way to push them away. So, recommendation to really examine yourself, your parents' relationship, your past relationships, your current relationships, and what you really want for the future. A supportive, caring partner, or maybe you don't want a partner now or even ever, but these traits of support, care, love, these are things that we have to look for, and we have to look for in ourselves to know that we deserve them. And that also we don't depend on anyone to make us feel good. We should be able to feel good on our own. So that's my spiel on toxic relationships. The next one I want to talk about is losing a loved one. And so this is actually my grandfather, who, it's funny, I lost him. He passed in 2015, actually, my freshman year of college. And he had such a profound impact on me growing up. He really gave me so much. And I'm going to actually talk about him a little bit later in week 3. But of Maxi Pro. But, he was someone who really seriously meant a lot to me, and losing him was very difficult. I also lost a couple of friends in high school, 2 guys who I played ice hockey with, and It's very, very devastating. A couple other people that come to mind when I think about loss are Bill Gates. Lost his best friend, I believe, when he was a teenager, and the loss of his best friend ended up being one of the greatest motivating factors in his life. It taught him to not only want to carry on the mission that he and his best friend were kind of working on, but to also just cherish every moment and make the most out of every single day. And you guys I'll tell you a little bit more about why my grandfather means so much to me, and how if you are dealing with loss now, or if you ever have, or if you ever do in the future, while the grief period can be incredibly difficult, ultimately the people we lose, it teaches us to not only remember them always and to, cherish the memories of them and to keep them as inspiration and a lesson to love each other and each moment, but it really, really can be something that shows us about ourselves and motivates us a ton. So now I want to discuss family difficulties, or living situations in which you're around toxic people. So sometimes there can be situations in which your family situation is really toxic and bad. And I personally have never had a family relationship that was super, super awful. I mean, there were maybe times when I was younger where we had a little bit of more serious problems, but for the most part, and at least from what I've observed, those who have difficult family situations growing up end up, again, using it as a type of fuel. So wherever you are at with your family, or the chances are, if you are taking this program, you're probably living independently. Just kind of evaluating your family past can absolutely open up a lot of your own biases, of your own insecurities, because at the end of the day, you spend so much time with your family growing up and the people you live with. And if there was any toxicity, we have to examine it. We have to, try to turn it around in some way. Otherwise, it will eventually end up holding us back. Now, the last thing I want to talk about are drug problems. And this is actually a good friend now and really a mentor of mine named Brody Kern. That's his wife with him. And Brody actually got a full podcast about him coming out, or if it's not out, or if it isn't out, it should be coming out soon. But by the time this is out, it will probably be available on Apple and Spotify. The name of the podcast would be Brody Kern, probably from drug addict to CEO. And Brody was severely addicted to hard drugs, alcohol, and had almost died multiple times, ending up in the hospital multiple times when he was in his 20s, in his college years. And he was, on the verge of death pretty much. And he had one of the worst addiction problems that you can have at such a young age. I mean, he was using cocaine for the first time, I think, at 13 or 14. And, by the time he was 20, heroin, anything he could get his hands on, he was doing. But ultimately, Brody, as you can see here, he's completely turned his life around. He runs a business called Wake Up Wealthy, which does hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not, by the time you're watching this, millions of dollars per year. And he's an incredible leader. He's got a spark in him, because what he was able to do is completely turn his life around. And again, that adversity, that idea of how hard you throw a ball at the ground is exactly how far it's going to bounce back up. And he's a guy who's been thrown at the ground extremely, extremely hard. And so he's bouncing back, bouncing up, and becoming a leader, leading through vulnerability. He's married, he's got a child, and he's got an incredible business, and he's helped me out a lot. So dealing with addiction, dealing with drug problems can, if you or anyone you know or care about is going through them, of course, it can take you down the wrong path and it can end pretty badly. But no matter where you're at, no matter where someone you care about is at, it can be turned around. He went to AA, and I think that's probably one of the best things to do if you have a serious drug and alcohol problem. But yeah, I mean, this is just a narrative, a story, and really all of the past 5 are narratives to show you that no matter the situation you find yourself in, you can really make the most of it and turn it around. So that is it for life complications. Now we're going to discuss how to let go, and then we'll just discuss overcoming feeling lost. So in discussing letting go, I do want to chat about fear and anxiety first, because really wherever we are in life, sometimes I think at least a majority of people will go through a phase of longer periods of fear and anxiety. And this tends to be before their general awakening into consciousness, into enlightenment. Now, if you're taking this program, the chances are is that perhaps you've actually been through a period of time where you were experiencing a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and just processing that. Perhaps you're going through it now. Perhaps you haven't quite yet, or maybe you never will. But the odds are that if you're here, at some times you have some sorts of fear or anxiety. And so what I have for you is pretty much a foolproof method or 8-step program that you can follow for the rest of your life to eradicate fear and anxiety from your entire being. Now, the first thing is to increase your meditation. So if you aren't meditating, I would definitely consider starting. We obviously have meditations prepared for you within Maxi Pro, but if you haven't started, that's a great place to start. Definitely doing it daily and 10 minutes a day. I personally do 30 to 60 minutes per day, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night, and it is absolutely life-changing because it increases your awareness. You know, we talk about bringing your attention to center, and doing meditation is the absolute most powerful way to do that. Now, the next thing you can do is simply slowing down your breathing. So if you find yourself feeling fear or anxiety, feeling an anxiety attack coming on, or feeling scared or stressed or worried about anything, slowing our breathing down is step 1. Okay, now, oftentimes just slowing your breathing down doesn't really help that much. And what's funny is that actually, sometimes we need to hold our breath, okay? So you take a deep breath in, allow the oxygen to stay in your lungs for 30 seconds or so, and then exhale. Sometimes we just need to allow oxygen to hold in our body. And this is a physiological phenomenon that happens, because if we are at shortness of breath, sometimes we just need to reset our body's sympathetic nervous system. And holding our breath is one way to kind of trigger that. So energy awareness exercise would be the next thing. So proactively practicing these energy awareness exercises, which I have included in the meditations or energy awareness tab, that is obviously something that's going to help. But there's also within that, I would recommend tapping. So if you feel a heavy amount of fear or anxiety ever, tapping on your head, the top of your head, fast and then making it slow, tapping on your collarbones, tapping on your own back, the energy meridians around your body, the energy pathways, okay? And just tapping, checking in with your body, tapping it, slowing it down, and kind of using physical touch to activate certain energies and emotions in your body. This is probably one of the most powerful ways to completely overcome the looming sense of general discomfort that comes with fear and anxiety. Now, obviously, having proper rest and nutrition and a good workout is going to help you as well. So, I don't really need to say too much about that. Maxi and the mindset portion of Maxi is already helping you do that by focusing on it. And then the Reset Zone app. This is something that I would recommend if you are really struggling and it's a consistent problem, or if it's just something that can kind of sweep in out of nowhere, maybe once a week or every couple weeks, but you notice a pattern. The Reset Zone app is great because it teaches you lots of exercises to ultimately overcome. And it has a 30-day free trial, and also it's only $2 per month. So if you're someone who deals with this fear and anxiety consistently, I can highly recommend the app. Now, letting go is something we will discuss in a bit. But then the last thing is therapy. And this is something that before I was a little bit skeptical of, and I didn't think was a great idea, because I thought that therapists, like I'd never been to one, and I thought, therapists kind of, they have this agenda because they don't really want to fix your problem. They want to just have you keep coming in as a client, because as soon as a therapist fixes your problem, then, why would they want to keep helping you? So I didn't like that. But then I ended up going, and it was really helpful. So, you want to find a good therapist, but you want to consider even going. I kind of wish I went like before I even did. I went after the toxic relationship, and the therapist really helped me uncover a lot of subconscious biases and past traumas, and really helped me kind of objectively look at my entire life. You have to remember that this is what therapists do for a living. And if you go in there with an intention and set an intention of what you want help with, they can be a massive help. They really can. So now I'd like to talk about letting go. And there's really two types of letting go. There's conscious letting go, and then there's subconscious letting go. Conscious letting go is if you've ever had a thought, or maybe you've attended one of the live calls from Maxi, where you come in and you say, my problem is this. Well, one of the best things you can do is simply let go of the idea of a problem. And there is a meditation within Maxi that you can do, the letting go meditation, that helps you to consciously think of something that you need to let go of, and then consciously let it go. Now, another thing is relationships, toxic relationships, maybe even just a bad breakup. If you can practice the letting go meditation there and just focus on totally letting go of the person with your mind, with your body, and your spirit, that can lead to a catharsis, an emotional release that ultimately helps you push forward a lot more in life. The other thing is letting go of an old identity or old habits. Now, as a YouTuber, or a former YouTuber, I guess I'm still a YouTuber, I've had to deal with change of my own identity, of myself, and growth and evolution as a human on a different scale than most people, because most people, it's hard to change who they are because they have the pressure of family and friends. I have that too, but I also have hundreds of thousands of people who watch my videos and expect me to be a certain way. So if there's one thing I know pretty well, it's about how to let go of old patterns, old identity, old habits. And one of the best way to do it is to simply do this letting go meditation on a relatively consistent basis. If something is especially bothersome to you, I've had bouts of routines in which I was doing this letting go meditation every day for 2 or 3 months. This exact one that I've included in the energy awareness exercises in Maxi. Now, there's also subconscious traumas, subconscious implicit biases that you simply aren't even aware of right now, that may at one point surface. But the truth is that you probably do have something within you that is holding you back, whether it's an unconscious belief or attachment to money, whether it's an unconscious belief about how a friendship should go. And these things can come from childhood, from traumatic situations that we don't even remember. I'm very serious about this. There can be things from your childhood that from the age of 0 to 4 happened and are still affecting the way you are today. If you've ever felt like, why do I keep self-sabotaging? Why do I keep, making a bunch of money and then, spending it all, okay? Or maybe, why do I keep attracting the same type of relationship? Or maybe just you find yourself in a situation that is new, but you don't really like how it's going. It's possible that this could be from a past trauma that you aren't even aware existed. And so I've created a subconscious meditation that will allow you to set the intention to let go of anything that is holding you back, and even if you aren't aware of it. So the only thing to follow letting go meditations is taking the action, but now we're going to discuss overcoming feeling lost. So one of the best things that you can do is turn the Maxi Key. We discussed this in week 1. And what you're seeing right now is actually to my left, as I make this video lesson for you, is 2 pages from the night that I created Maxi. Now, it's funny because a lot of the routines and practices I teach in Maxi are what helps me create Maxi in the first place. And turning a Maxi Key is one of the best things you can do. So as a review, you can go back and learn, but and watch that original video from week 1. I believe it's the last video. But for right now, all you need to know is that to do a Maxi Key, you simply set a start and end time, and then you fill maybe an hour or 2 hours. And within that 1 or 2 hours, you ask yourself a question. Whatever question it is that's been bothering you, whatever you're feeling lost about, whether it's your life purpose, your social situation, your relationship, and you can't seem to figure it out. See, the truth is, you probably know the answer already, and you just aren't allowing yourself the time to do your best. So what I want you to do, and this is what I have here in this picture, is my brainstorming session for the day that I decided to create Maxi. I was feeling lost because I felt like I didn't know what to do for my purpose in life, for my business, but I knew it was related to personal development. And I decided one day to just sit down and make it happen and just set 2 hours, do the best I can. And that's what ended up becoming the idea that was Maxi. And it still sits there today. I'll probably keep that for a long time because it's just a reminder that we know the answers to the test, but we don't ever time block, do a Maxi Key, set a start and end time, and make it happen. The next thing that I would highly recommend is a silent retreat. Now, I did one for 3 days, and what you're seeing here are my post-silent retreat steps. Now, to be fair, I didn't even allow myself a journal for the first day of the silent retreat. Sometimes people do silent retreats where they don't allow themselves a journal or anything for 10 days, 10 days in total. I just said, you know what, I'm going to do one day where I can't consume anything and I can't even exercise. So I spent the entire day in one room. I did nothing. I didn't speak. I didn't eat. I did eat because I happened to be on prednisone for poison ivy. But anyway, I didn't speak. I didn't obviously look at my phone or drink coffee. The food I did eat was pretty basic. Ideally, I would like to have done a full fast, but I pretty much just sat in a room for the entire 24-hour period. And, I'm someone who has been meditating for a while, so it wasn't that difficult, but it really helped me narrow in on, what do I really want to do with my life in the next year, in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 years. And what is my legacy going to be? And one of the things that I did after the silent retreat was I wrote down these post-silent retreat steps, which I knew had to happen in order to really eliminate distractions from my life. I found during the silent retreat that I had this big realization that I had become a slave to my phone. And I decided to implement all of these strategies to make my phone and my laptop completely distraction-proof. Now, you'll get your own realizations. One tip that I might recommend, or 2 tips, are to go into nature as much as possible if you can. Like if you can do the whole silent retreat out in the forest or down by a beach, that would be really, really helpful to get some sunlight and out of the house and in nature. But also I recommend counting your breaths. This was a really interesting exercise where I just decided to count my breaths in my head from 1 to 100 and kind of repeat the process. And what you'll find is the mind likes to rush things, often for absolutely no reason. And so in doing this, it was really helpful because I just saw how my mind was trying to rush for some reason. It invented all on its own. So the next thing I might recommend is joining a mastermind. Now, this is Dale Carnegie's original mastermind, or at least that's what happened when I Googled it and picked a image that was labeled for reuse. But what I would recommend doing is, if you aren't already in a mastermind or you don't have a mentor, I do offer one-on-one mentorship. Maxi technically is a mastermind, but joining potentially a higher level mastermind could help a lot. People who are where you are now, who are kind of working toward the same goals, or even further ahead of where you are. This can be extremely helpful for you to go into a mastermind, a group of people who are working toward bettering the world, and to lead with vulnerability. Be open to what people have to criticize about you. Ask questions, and to also contribute. So, sorry, I think I said this was Dale Carnegie. It's actually Andrew Carnegie. not Dale. Dale Carnegie wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book. But the one thing I will also say about masterminds, because I've been doing this for quite a while, is you really have to contribute. And the more that you contribute to others and help other people see themselves objectively, the more that they're going to be able to help you. So the next thing is to focus on basically automation. Okay, so if you're feeling lost, you probably have a lot on your plate. So doing the monthly 80-20 Maxi review can be very helpful with a focus on the elimination part. Okay, there might be a lot of areas in your life where you just are doing things almost for no reason. And you really haven't taken the time to critically think about, is this really helping me? Do I really need this in my life? What would happen? What could be the craziest thing I do to eliminate this? Like, what would be the craziest thing I do or could do to make this problem just completely go away? You may want to ask yourself, is there any way I could possibly automate my life a bit more so that it is easier? For example, as I started building this program, I realized that it's not really important to me to look or dress nicely. So I just decided to only wear 2 outfits for the entire month of June as I'm creating this. It's pretty funny. Now, the next thing is that in building systems, you don't need a robot. You don't really need an app. You can just use tech. Now, this is something that I may go into in the future, or if you join my one-on-one mentorship program, I can teach you about tech. But I always thought that if you wanted to build a system like Maxi, that you needed an app. And of course, by the time this video is out, Maxi itself may already be an app. But at the start, it was fully functional, and I built the entire thing myself. And creating online programs that generate money pretty much on autopilot is a lot easier and accessible than people think it is. And for that reason, sometimes you don't even need a virtual assistant, and there's ways to get around that. So again, or for the last thing I talk about, it's building teams. So delegation is a big word. And when you think about building a business, when you think about building yourself as a personal brand, one thing I wish I did from the beginning was thinking about how could I, build this business, obviously at the start by myself, but thinking about that every part of the business at one point should be able to be automated. Building yourself up as a linchpin. And a linchpin is basically someone who is irreplaceable. So you want to not be a generalist. You want to be so good at what you're doing that as the business continues to grow around you, you have people kind of doing the menial tasks, the things like customer service and sales. Not that those are bad positions, but you shouldn't really be doing those. You should be doing the one thing that you're best at if you're building a business. And, aside from that, as you're building it, you really want to think delegation and automation from the start. There's a great software called Asana that can help you to map out what are the ideal processes, or what are all the processes that need to happen, so that one day when you do end up making a lot of money and hiring out, it's very easy for you to teach people how to run your business for you. And I'll talk about this later even more, but you kind of want to think, if I were to build this business, would it be possible for me to get off the grid, to leave the country for an entire month or even 2 months and not touch my business or open a single email? Would the business still be able to run? And if you can do that, you're going to be very successful. So now we've discussed what to do when something bothers you, what to do when life gets complicated, letting go, and how to overcome feeling lost. And in tomorrow's video, we'll discuss an inner and outer purpose integration. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Hey, what's up, brother? Hopefully you are enjoying these free resources that I'm putting out for you. Now, if you got to the end of this video and you had the patience and the discipline to finish something to completion, then you might be a good fit for my mastermind. I am building a small community of only 50 investors, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are looking to level up in their mindset, their fitness, their social circle, their social media brand, and business. You might be a good fit. If you'd be interested in joining that, or applying to it at least, it's invite only, then direct message me the word mastermind on Instagram at Arlin, that's ARLIN. Direct message me the word mastermind to see if you are a good fit. I'll send you a link. You'll be sent to this page. You will book a time, and then you will answer the survey questions. Okay, and make sure you answer these questions in sufficient detail because we will cancel if you don't put in effort and you aren't serious about this. Again, we're only accepting hitters, so if that's you, send me a message.